Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar about binary repository management with JFrog Artifactory and TFS. We would be happy to answer your questions after the webinar, so please either type your questions into the chat at the bottom of your screen, or we can leave some time at the end of the webinar for your questions. Today's speaker is Jan. He is a solution engineer at JFrog. And Jan, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Catherine. And welcome everybody. So thank you for joining me in today's webinar. So today I will be talking about the integration of Artifactory, which is, a binary repository manager, and with your TFS. And how you can actually, by using these two products, how you can leverage your CI/CD process. So I will talk about the different things, how you can achieve this during this webinar. So before jumping to the hot topics, so here is a little bit about myself. So I'm Jan Chasing, solution engineer at JFrog. So I'm located in France, more specifically in Toulouse. And the solution engineering team is actually spread on different locations, okay, in the United States, in France, and in Israel. So the mission of the solution engineering team is actually to communicate, okay? Communicate through, for instance, through these through webinars like I'm doing right now, by showing what you can do with Artifactory and giving best practices as well. Aside this, doing webinars, we also write blog posts and also white papers that we provide through our website. We also attend different conventions, okay, during this year. So, for instance, we were at DevOps, at DockerCon, KubeCon, and we will be also attending the Jenkins World, so in San Francisco and in Nice. And also, a part of this, doing webinars and attending convention, we also, do perform technical session with our customers to provide them best practices about, the CI/CD pipelines and guide them during their DevOps journey. So this is our mission. So now that I told you a bit about myself, so let's jump directly to the agenda for this webinar. Okay, so first, as if you're here, well, you would be kind of familiar with TFS, and you may be wondering what is exactly, Artifactory, which is a binary repository manager, and actually, why would you use a binary repository manager along with your TFS? What would you get from this? So I will explain why you would need this. And, so Artifactory is not the only binary repository manager in the market, but I will explain you why, what you can get, which benefits you would get from using Artifactory instead of another solution. Then I will, zoom in a little bit and really point you out, the features that you would use during your TFS, Artifactory TFS integration, and how it can, improve or leverage your CI/CD workflow. And at the end, well, almost the end, I will perform a demo showing you this integration between these products. And if you got time, we will end this webinar with a Q&A session. Okay, so let's get started. And and jump directly to the first question. So why would you need a binary repository manager? Because, well, you are using, I get that you guys are TFS users. Your product, it's a centralized tool that will help you to do different things. Okay? Like, for instance, you will be able to do some project management, especially if you want, to manage your teams in a agile methodology. By implementing Scrum with or without Kanban, for instance, or if you want to implement a CMMI approach, you will be able to do it in TFS. through the different dashboards and managing the activity of your team with work items, managing your backlogs, creating queries to get some metrics. So you'll be able to monitor your different teams and your product. You will also be able, to perform some code management. So, in TFS, you'll be able to host your different code source repo in TFVC repo or Git repositories. You will be able to manage, or to see your different commits, manage different branches, pull requests, and all the tags. So everything you need to have, a good code management. And also, you will be able to implement your CI/CD pipeline, okay, to implement all the steps of this wheel through, in TFS, you have, this build and release tab where, okay, in the build tab, you'll be able to create all your build definitions, with tasks inside them. In the release tab, you will be able to manage really the deployment, I would say, of your binaries onto different environments and manage really this workflow. And even you'll be able to manage your test plan and also your private, I would say, package feed. So with all of that, okay, you'll be wondering, well, so far so good. I've been using TFS. It's a really great tool. I can manage all these different aspects. So why would I need a binary repository manager now? So I will actually give you a hint on why you would need actually a binary repository manager. And so just to introduce that, so we'll just go over the process to release your binary. So you will start by writing some codes for your project. Could be any kind of project, .NET or Java or JavaScript project, whatever. And mostly in your project, where you won't write all the code. You would actually get some piece of different of codes, okay, to implement specific features. And for that, you would rely on on third-party libraries. Basically, these will be the dependencies of your project, of your binary, of your application. And here, it's getting a bit vague, okay? So you'll be getting, you would like to use this package, okay? If you're doing, for instance, some .NET development, you would like to use a specific NuGet package to do these specific actions, okay? If you want to manage, I don't know, JSON files, you would use the Newton JSON package. And then you will download it, okay? You would use it, it will work fine. But for that, I mean, when you grab a dependency, it may have other dependencies. So you'll be grabbing dependencies of dependencies and so on. So at the end, you may or might not really have a good view on what you are building your application on. Okay, you have so many dependencies. Well, from I would say a developer perspective, as long as it works, that's fine. But here, that can give you a hint on why you would use a binary repository manager to really have a view on what your a view on your dependency that you're relying on. Really understand what's going on to your build and your dev process. So this actually. So when you have your dependency, they will be used during the compilation or during the build phase more generally, and then to get your final artifact. And so here the link, I would say, between your artifact, your generated artifact, and your dependency will be done, I would say, into a binary repository manager, which should give you, this view and relationship between all your binaries. So you would answer this kind of question: why do you have this dependency? So where is it used? Who is consuming it? And then also you have the same problematics for your artifact, saying that, well, I generated, an artifact, an NPM package, for instance. And it's some kind of piece of a framework, and you would say, well, in my company, I'm building this NPM package, but I would like to know who is using my package, which version is used in other projects. And for that, you'd be able then to really understand which other application relying on your own package are consuming a specific version. Okay, and then you'll be able really to communicate with them to tell them that it's time to upgrade to a new version. And so you can get that from a binary repository manager to get this feeling or this overview on all your binaries. And actually, you can get that from Artifactory, which is the a binary repository manager. So with Artifactory, what you can get from Artifactory that you don't have with other, what you may not have with other binary repository manager is first, well, the different kind of binary that you can host in Artifactory. As a binary repository manager, you would like to manage binaries, but all your binaries, you would like to have this central tool where all your binaries will be stored and managed. So here, with Artifactory, we've got different kind of repositories where you'll be hosting your artifact. So for instance, we have, if you're doing some Java development, mostly you would, rely on specific build tools like Maven, Gradle, or Ant or NIV. If you've been doing, Java development for a certain amount of years now, you would be using Ant and IV. But mostly here, what I wanted to point out is that you will have dedicated repo for each technology, for Maven, for Gradle, for Ant, or for IV. Okay. If you're doing .NET development, well, you can rely, on you would do mostly .NET development. You would rely on the NuGet command or tool to download your NuGet packages from the NuGet gallery. So here we've got a dedicated repo for that. If you want to do, if you're a sysadmin, well, you'll be interesting to host RPM packages or Debian packages. If you're more also a nubs guy or a script guy, well, you would like to store your Python, eggs, or wheel packages or Ruby gems. And also, again, if you're an ops, you also be interested of storing, along with your RPM or NPM packages or Debian Docker images. And you would get that from Artifactory, different kind of repos to host different kind of binaries. So one of the most recent one is that you can also store your Helm chart, used by Kubernetes, into Artifactory. If you want to host different things, different format, like I don't know, music, videos, or text file, PDF, you would store them into what we call a generic repo. For instance, one of the most use cases is when you would like to you would store your binaries into Artifactory, but you also like to store your test results. Well, you could store them into a generic repository. So everything can be focused or centralized into Artifactory. I forgot also, if you're doing C and C++, you may want to store your Conan packages inside Artifactory. Then you would use Artifactory, your repository manager, as a single source of truth or single source of your binaries. So let's take this example. Here I've got different developers, which will actually, which are working in the same team, but they're building locally their project. Basically, when they want to get a new dependency, they will connect, from their own workstation to a remote repository. If you're doing .NET development, you will connect to NuGet, the NuGet gallery to get your a specific dependency. If your colleague want to get the same library, the same NuGet package, it will have to connect again to the NuGet gallery and download it locally. When you use Artifactory, you will use it as a single source of truth, and basically it will act as a proxy or cache. Okay. So this is the new, I would say, workflow. So all your developers will connect to Artifactory, or they will connect their dependency tool or build tool to Artifactory to download their dependency. And the idea here would be to, when one developer download a specific dependency, it will go through Artifactory, which will then at its turn connect to a remote repository. So a remote repository would be, for NuGet gallery, for NPM could be NPM registry, for Docker it could be Docker Hub. And then, so all this, the requested artifact will be stored into Artifactory, and then will be transferred to the developer who initiated this request. And then if you got another developer who wants the same dependency, it will connect to Artifactory and get it directly from Artifactory without, going again or connecting to the remote server. Okay, everything will be local to Artifactory, and actually it will speed up, the dependency resolution, because Artifactory won't have to connect again to this foreign repository. It will get it directly from its local file store. So it's going to be a gain of time during your build phases. And you can also see that here, in Artifactory, you have different kind of repositories. Okay, you have the notion of remote repository, local repository, and virtual repository. Here, when I talk about the remote repository, like NPM registry, for instance, so you will create a specific remote repository in Artifactory, okay, which will point to NPM registry. You can create as many remote repository as you want, okay. And then, well, the repository will be used mostly to pull dependencies. If you want to push your own artifact, your own generated binaries, you would, for that, push them to a local repository. Okay, and then, so these are two kinds of repositories, and you have the virtual repository, which is an aggregation of different repositories. So here, in this example, you can see that a virtual repository aggregates two remote repositories and one local repository. And as each repository is identified or accessible through a unique URL, here you would access, to these three repositories through one single URL, which will be this of the virtual repository. And by that, you'll be able to push, to pull dependencies and to push your own artifact using the same URL of your virtual repository. So your developers will only, or your CI or your TFS will only have the knowledge of the URL of this virtual repository, and behind the scene, you will be able to manage the different endpoints. So this is what you can get from Artifactory. Then in Artifactory, we are managing a lot of metadata. Okay, so this metadata would be a way to describe or enrich your own artifact. Okay, so in that, and using this kind of metadata, you will be able to track down and audit your artifact. You'll be able to perform searches, based on this metadata. So for instance, let's say that you would like to know, or you would like to to get some metric to know exactly which artifacts are in QA, okay, but haven't been tested yet, or are currently in testing phase. Okay, so for that, what you can do in Artifactory is to apply a custom metadata, which would be a QA.status, and you would apply the value. You will set the value as testing, okay, or not tested. And then, so you'll be able to, in Artifactory, to do that kind of request, okay, on metadata or on other attributes. But here, this would be a custom metadata, this QA.status. So this is what you can get from Artifactory by using metadata. The other use case of metadata is that with Artifactory, we can extract metadata from different from specific packages. Again, let's say if you're doing NuGet .NET development and you're using NuGet packages, you know that you have a new spec file, okay, which contains different information about your package. When we in Artifactory, when we are hosting, a NuGet package, we will extract actually this data, this metadata from your package, and then display them into Artifactory. I will show it to you during the demo in a specific tab, and then they will also be accessible through as metadata, custom metadata, and then you'll be able to perform queries or search using this metadata. So already having this concept of metadata inside your binary repository manager is really, really helpful to track down and perform audits on your binaries. Then, well, the other really great thing or cool thing about Artifactory, and that I personally really love, is that, you know, with Artifactory, you will be able to integrate it into your CI/CD process really easily. Okay, Artifactory will be able, you know, to fit or to sit inside your CI/CD process really easily, because it has actually a powerful REST API. Okay, so with this, you will be able to script, automate action that are provided into Artifactory. Basically, all the action that you can do through the UI, like, you know, creating specific repos for your binaries, and then setting up specific permissions, because you can also manage permissions to access your binaries, creating internal users, and so on. Okay, you will be able to script it, and so you'll be able to automate your process, your CI/CD process, by invoking the REST API. We have other tools, okay, to manage your or to automate your CI/CD pipeline. For instance, we have the JFrog CLI, okay, so the JFrog command line interface, which is a tool which is more focused, you know, on the, let's say, the artifact management, and more specifically in massive action on your artifact, massive deletion, massive uploads, or massive downloads. So with that, you will be able, you know, to really take advantage of the automation. And the CLI, you know, a few words about the CLI. The CLI can be installed on any kind of machine, in Linux, Windows, and then you know, whatever the kind of server, you can use the same tool and the same process or way to implement your process. The third and I would say the last, I would say, way to really to automate your process would be to use user plugins. A user plugin, okay, is a Groovy script that you can write, and this Groovy script, with this user plugin, you will be able to hit on the internal API of Artifactory to be able to create or implement a specific behavior that which is not available in Artifactory. So you got a lot of different use cases. Among them, you know, if you want, let's say, to prevent the override of a specific artifact, what you can do is to write a user plugin, okay, in Groovy, which will first check if an artifact exists, so based on its ID and name, for instance, and if it exists, you can reject the upload. What you can do also is to, this is one actually of the latest plugin that we released, because we have, you know, on our GitHub repo, a list of free and available user plugins. Feel free to download them or to follow them. For instance, to trigger a webhook when you upload a specific an artifact to a specific repo. Okay, you would like to be, I don't know, to trigger some mechanism, webhooks, when something goes into a specific repo, you will be able to implement this behavior through a user plugin. And a user plugin, so you have to install it into your Artifactory instance, and it will become a new endpoint, you know, in Artifactory. So this is how you can really integrate and take advantage of all the automation that Artifactory can provide you. And then, you know, as Artifactory is hosting your different binaries, and that it's also possible, you know, to perform different copies of your artifact into different repositories in Artifactory. Artifactory is not, you know, a dumb or simple file storage. It relies on a checksum-based storage, meaning that any artifact stored into Artifactory, a new dependency or your own artifact, they will be identified by their checksum, by their SHA-1. So we are also in the process to migrate to SHA-256 to identify them. So this is actually, you can see on the screenshot that, you know, on your file store, okay, on your local disk, if you're using a local disk by default, you have, you know, this is actually one of your binary. Okay, so, and to identify this binary, we'll get actually, when you install Artifactory, you will have out of the box, you know, an Apache Derby database, which will contain all the information related to your binary, like its name, the location it's hosted in, and so on. So its size and so on. Okay, so it's some kind of metadata that will be hosting into the internal database. And having this mechanism will help you to prevent exploding your file store, okay? If you're doing copies of the same binary into different repositories, well, you won't, duplicate the number of binaries. You will actually keep the same binary, a unique binary, but for each occurrence or each copies of this binary, you have specific metadata. So let's say if you have two copies into your two copies of the same binary into two different repositories, you will have only one binary on your file store, but two metadata, okay, for your two copies. So it's a way really to optimize your file store and to prevent to explode it when you're managing a lot of binaries. So it's kind of similar, it's really similar to what what's been implemented in Git, when you're doing commits. Then, well, you may be wondering how Artifactory could sit exactly in your workflow. Well, this is some kind of big picture on how when actually you would use or call or invoke Artifactory. So first, you have your in TFS, because it's a webinar on TFS, you would use a TFS to host your different code repo. Okay. And then, well, you would, for your project, you would rely on different build tools or dependency tool. Okay, you get not really a build tool, but more dependency tool, for instance. Maven is a build tool. So briefly, well, your TFS will call actually, your build tool to build your project, which is and your build tool will actually, rely on the code to build your project, but also rely on Artifactory to download the dependencies. Okay. Well, then your TFS will drive, the code will invoke your build tools to get, to create your project or your application. And at its turn, well, based on your code from the version control and based on the dependency which were required, it will be able to create your golden artifact or your artifact that you would then publish to Artifactory. Okay. Actually, we'll show you during the demo that you will do more than publishing your artifact and downloading dependencies. So this is where actually, Artifactory has different links between your build tools, your CI server, and also, so it's used during the build phase, okay, and also during the deployment phase. If you're doing CI/CD, well, you will have a deployment phase. If you're, playing or using containers like Docker, well, you would use Artifactory as your main Docker registry. So you would pull your Docker images from Artifactory, the one that you would have produced based on based image that you would have got from Docker Hub, for instance. Then you would download, you would deploy them to to some kind of containers platform like Kubernetes, OpenShift, and so on. Well, actually, OpenShift relies on Kubernetes now. And also, if you're doing some deployment without containers, well, you would get your binaries from still Artifactory, and you would use your deployment tool like Chef deployment tool or provisioning tool like Chef, Puppet, SaltStack, or Ansible, okay, to get the binaries from Artifactory and deploy them to the target. And by the way, so Chef, we store Chef cookbooks and Puppet modules inside Artifactory. Okay, so this would be, this is where you can see Artifactory will sit into your CI/CD process, so at different stage. And that's why Artifactory, your binary repository manager, has a really central place into your workflow. So now I will exactly pinpoint, that now you have this overview of what you can get from Artifactory. I will zoom in and really talk about the different feature in Artifactory that you would use with your TFS. The goal of this webinar would be really to talk about the integration between Artifactory and TFS. So, I've talked about tracking down, auditing your binaries, and for that, you would rely on on specific feature from Artifactory. First one would be the build info. So don't worry, I'll be talking about different terms, and I will show you them after, in the next few minutes. you will be able to really understand what it is exactly and how it's implemented in Artifactory. So the notion of build info. So a build info is a BOM, okay, a bill of material, which will contain information about your build, your TFS build, or build definitions. And it will contain, what you've generated, your final artifact, and the list of dependencies required for your build. Okay. The idea of using a build info is to group and to have this immutable, I would say, group of artifacts with this relationship of dependencies and dependent, and to really understand what's going on into your build, to really understand why you have these dependencies. If you lose this dependency, what's going to break? Is it going to break specific other product? Okay. So this is the idea of a build info. So it will reflect actually the build which occurred on your TFS server. And the idea is also to be able to reproduce, this specific build later in the future. And for that, we need all this information. So the context. So basically, for the context, we'll capture the environment variables of the build, what you've generated, and the list of dependencies with their name, their ID, and their number. Okay, version. Sorry, ID and version. Then you would also rely on the properties, which are custom metadata, like I talked about before. So you would use the metadata to enrich and to give more information on your binaries. And then if you want to perform some searches based on these properties, you will be able to do it. Okay. Then you have the AQL. So basically, it's the Artifactory query language. It's similar to SQL, okay, but for Artifactory. Again, so properties, actually, the AQL is, okay, the query language that you would use to track down your binaries, to get information from your binaries. So for instance, we will show you that you will be able, okay, to implement a cleanup policy using properties and AQL, or only AQL, you will see. So what you can get from the AQL is done that kind of queries of, I would like to list all, the binaries which are older than 8 months or 1 year. This is kind of an AQL query that you can do, to really perform searches and audit on your binaries. And I will explain you that, I talked about the cleanup policy. You will be able to, from the result of your AQL query, you will be able to pass it to another tool to then delete to delete specific binaries and to implement your cleanup policy. Actually, I will come to it in really shortly. So the other feature that you would get from Artifactory would be to use the TFS or Azure DevOps or VSTS plugin. Okay. So this plugin is available on the marketplace, on the TFS marketplace, and you will have, when you install this plugin, you will have access to different tasks to manage your dependencies, to download your dependency from Artifactory, and to push or publish your build info and along with your artifact to Artifactory. It's a way really to automate things. You can also, rely on the REST API if you want to to perform specific actions through Artifactory. So we got a huge set of endpoints, and the CLI that I talked about, the command line interface, which actually, I was talking a few seconds ago about a tool which will get the result of your AQL query and perform actions on them. Well, that would be the CLI. Okay, so with the AQL query, you will be able to list specific items based on their properties or attributes. Okay, let's say that, well, for instance, the creation date is an attribute. Or you can also perform an AQL query based on properties. Like in my example, that would be, you would like to, I don't know, to delete the artifacts which have been, which have passed QA. All right. And they have these QA.status properties. You would like to delete all the artifacts which have this QA.status equal tested. You would like to delete them, for instance. You can do this with AQL combined with the CLI. So we have different ways, okay, different axes for automations. And then, well, last but not the least, you would like to secure the access to your binaries. And for that, in Artifactory, we've got different built-in security or authentication mechanism like LDAP. So if you want to plug your Active Directory to Artifactory, you will be able to do it. If you're using, I don't know, an Azure AD, which rely, on SAML or Auth, you will be able to take advantage of this protocol with Artifactory, and then be able to set up specific permissions on your repo to really control who can read or write into specific repositories. So this is what you can really get. So I will demo the different features in Artifactory. And actually, it's time for the demo. Okay. So first, I will show you exactly what you can get from. Let's hold on a second. Yeah. So from Artifactory. So this is the TFS homepage. Sorry. I will first go to Artifactory to show you exactly what I talked about the different repositories. So in Artifactory, you will be able to manage different kind of repositories. So here, I put a filter on NuGet and NPM because I've got examples on NuGet and NPM. You have the concept, of, well, by the way, so you can see here that we can also manage Chocolatey repository through NuGet repositories. If I take, for instance, this NuGet release virtual repository, it contains, a local repository and a remote repository. And then you will be able to dig in, okay, to see all the different repositories which are in these ones. And to access it, okay, and using a virtual repository will be a way to access at the same time to access, I would say, artifacts in this local repository and in this remote. Okay. So we have the concept of virtual, local, and remote repositories as well. I have to log in to show you the next thing. Would be the different authentication mechanism. Sorry, here. Oh, it's not this one. All right. So then in Artifactory, I talked about the security. So you'll be able to manage, different authentication mechanism, LDAP, SAML, or Auth, or even CrowdGRI if you're using it. Manage different permissions. Okay, so for instance, for my TFS, I've got a TFS permission, and my TFS user will have access to all these repositories. So you can pick up any of those, okay? And then specify or set permissions on the specific groups, okay? Maybe LDAP groups that you would have imported from your AD, or on specific users. So here I've got an internal user, and I would be setting different specific permissions. So here it has almost all the permissions. You can delete, overwrite, it can upload, okay, artifacts to Artifactory, to specific repositories, so the one that I would have specified in the repository tabs. Annotate would be to be able to add custom metadata, to add properties, and read, well, to be able to download, binaries from the specific repositories. Okay, so this is briefly, you've got, this is a really super quick overview of the Artifactory UI. I will get back to it, don't worry, in the next minutes. So here I'll be back on my TFS. So first, what you would do, to enable this super fast and easy integration with Artifactory, well, you would download our plugin, which is available on the marketplace. When you download our plugin, you will be able to have access to different tasks. So I will show you exactly the different tasks that you can have. Well, actually, when you install, the Artifactory plugin, sorry, the first thing that the next thing that you would do is to set up Artifactory as a service. Okay, so here you will create an Artifactory service. So you have to specify your credentials, okay, to be able to connect to your Artifactory and the URL to your Artifactory. Once you're done, well, you will be able to, play around with Artifactory. So here, I've got two, which I will show you two pipelines, one for NuGet for .NET and the other one for NPM. So I will create a NuGet package that I will publish, and then that I will actually manage, through my release pipeline. I will do the same for NPM to show you the different tasks. Okay, so we also have on my release tab a release pipeline for .NET and for NuGet, more specifically, and for NPM. Okay, so but first I will go with a with the build section for my .NET or NuGet package or pipeline. So this is my pipeline. So when you install the Artifactory plugin, you will have access to different tasks in relation with Artifactory. So basically, we have a task, to manage, I would say, Maven project to download dependency for your Artifactory service. So we have the same task for Maven, NPM, and NuGet. So we have a download task, I would say, or for Maven, it's going to be it will do an install against Artifactory, Maven install, for NPM install, and NuGet restore. Okay. And then you'll be able to publish your build info in your artifact using, you'll be able to publish using the NuGet push and NPM publish, and Maven is going to be deploy. You also have generic task if you want to upload a generic artifact, to a generic repo and download it. And then I will talk about this one, the build promotion, which is would be the follow of the publish build info. But I will talk about that in the next minute. So about my pipeline, so this is a Visual Studio or MS Build project, which will create my my own NuGet package. So I will use first this Artifactory NuGet restore task. Okay, so when you put it, you have this task we call the NuGet restore command. It will hit on my Artifactory service. I'm specifying, the NuGet, the resolution repository. So in my Artifactory, if I go back here, I'll be using actually NuGet int, NuGet staging, and NuGet release. So here, I'm getting my dependencies, required by my project. I will be getting them from the NuGet release virtual repository. And then so you have to pass, the solution file to then be able for Artifactory to know exactly which dependency to get. Okay, and you can also see that I'm collecting the build info. Okay, so basically I'll be able to collect all the dependencies required during my build, and I'm also capturing the environment variable. So here I've got a step to build my solution, a step which is already included in TFS, to package my NuGet package. And then, I will use the Artifactory NuGet push command, or task, to publish my artifact, my own NuGet package. So here again, I'm collecting the build info. I don't really need to include the environment variables again because I've already collected them here. And when I've published my artifact, I would like to publish my build info. So I will show you exactly the different steps. So I will run, this job, which should be pretty quick. So it's going to be, I'll be running this into my Windows agent. Hopefully, it shouldn't take too long. So what you can see is that here, on the NuGet restore step, I'm downloading through Artifactory all my different dependencies. You need the Nets, OpenWeather, and jQuery. Yes, it's an old version of jQuery. But anyway, you will then see in the NuGet push that I'm publishing the result of my build, my own artifact. I'm pushing it to Artifactory, and then I'm publishing my build info. And here we've got a link, to jump to it. All right, so here now I'm in the build section of Artifactory, and this is, I've been talking a lot about this build info, so this is the build info. So this is the UI to present you a build info. You have different information about your build, but more specifically, more importantly, you have this notion of what I generated based on what. So this is, I got a module, okay, which show me that I've created this package. This is the result of my build, okay, which was started at this time. And now it sits, or it's located in the NuGet int local repository. Okay, so I've actually published to a virtual repository called NuGet int, and inside NuGet int, inside my virtual repository, I have a local repository where I'm pushing my own packages. In the same way, well, I have also my dependencies. So I can see that to create my NuGet package, I needed these specific dependencies. So I will show you exactly when I say tracking down dependency, what it means. So when I say that you have to re-understand the relationship between your artifact. So for that, I will jump to the artifact view, okay, to see my artifact, my NuGet package. I've got this generic tab which show me different information, generic information, like who deployed it, what the size, when it's been created, okay, where it sits in my NuGet int virtual repository. And I talked to you that we were also extracting specific metadata from the package itself. So for my here I've got this new package info tab, which has extracted the information from my new spec file. You can see that I've got all my dependencies, my descriptions, and so on. And then, so you have, we'll jump directly actually to the properties. Like we will also use, what we've extracted from the new spec file. We'll use this as metadata, as custom properties. So here, by default, we'll add the plugin will add this metadata, the build name, number, and timestamp. And then we'll also add as custom or as properties, this is what you call them, or custom metadata, the metadata from your package. And then you'll be able to perform, searches or audits using, for instance, the AQL or the REST API based on these properties. So for instance, if you you'll be able to tell I want to list all the package which are relying on this dependency. So this is very powerful. So we also have this notion of permissions, so of security, who can access my artifacts, these users, these groups, and also the permission targets. So which permissions my artifact is involved with. And then, well, you have different things. And what I wanted to show you is really the build tab, which will give you, the sense of this view of your entire build. So here you'll be able to see that this package has been created or produced by this project, by this build. Okay, so I can also jump back to the build. And it's the result of this specific build. Okay. So this is the link, that I've got this artifact, who created it, when. So I've got this information. And of course, also have the same kind of information, but in the other way around. So if I take this jQuery, okay, this jQuery NuGet package to get exactly the same information, okay. And if I go to the build tab, I would be able to see that, well, specifically this one, it's been, used by different projects, different build info. So here I've got only one build info. So if I get rid of this dependency, I may, break this build info, this build. So this is why I was talking about tracking down and auditing your binaries through a build info. Okay, so then you can switch back, to any other build info. So this is what I wanted to show, and so I also say that we can capture the environment variables, right, to have a better view on the context of your build. The other great feature would be to have this diff, okay, you will be able to to compare different builds. So if I take this build and this one, well, I'll be able to see that what has changed is that I bumped the version. Okay. In this build, well, I generated this my version 1.0.0, and this current build generated the version 1.0.1. And you have this kind of diff, for your dependencies, so nothing has changed here. And also for the environment variables. So this is something that they have been changed or updated. And at the end, I will show you also this. You have, all the information from these different tabs are located into this build info JSON. And basically, if you want to perform audits or reproduce your build, well, you just need to copy and save this file into a specific, in the safe place, and then you will have all the information that you need to be able to reproduce your build. What I want to show you also is this, the release history. And basically, it's going to be it's a way to implement your binaries lifecycle. Okay. So that's why I will jump to show to my TFS. Okay. And I will show exactly what I have in my release pipeline. So if I take this one, the idea would be really to, this is what you usually do, is to have different environments. You would perform different tests, okay? This is our fake test, actually. Use your binary, test it, install it, and then test it. And when it's done, well, you would invoke a promotion. In Artifactory, what we recommend is to have dedicated repositories for each maturity level of your product. So in my case, well, I will have, for NuGet, I've got NuGet integration, NuGet staging, and NuGet release. This is a different maturity level of my product. And for that, to represent, the change of maturity level, I will invoke a build promotion. So I will actually move the artifact in my build from a repo to another. So from NuGet int to NuGet staging. Okay, so this is actually what I'm going to do. And I've got the same thing, for staging. You'll be running out the test, and then you will perform a promotion, a build promotion, which will drag along your artifacts from a repo to another. Okay, so just want to check if maybe, so it's already prepared. So I will actually do a release. So we'll deploy to integration. Okay. So what's going to do, it's going to perform, a build promotion, and it will move my artifact. So remember, I pushed to integration to the NuGet int, in my build phase or section, I pushed to the NuGet int repo. So normally, if I go to my NuGet int repo, it shouldn't be here. It's called my grading. It's not here anymore. And if I go to my build section, okay, I will see that it's been moved because it passed all the quality. It passed the quality gate. Now it sits my package is now in the staging environment. It's in staging maturity level. And when we go to the release history, I know that I've got a trace, okay, a log, which told me exactly which quality gate I passed for my package. And I can keep going. And the idea would be to automate this process. Okay, if I want to deploy to, I will deploy to staging. And if everything goes well, I will be able to promote to my release, okay, to my release repository. If I go here and I reload this tab, now I've got this history, and now my artifact is in my NuGet in this specific repo, which symbolize, which represent that this is my fully tested package. And now, if you want to consume my latest version, my latest qualified version, you should get it from this NuGet release local repo. And you have exactly the same concept that with any other kind of technology. So here I will show you an NPM pipeline very briefly. I won't go over the same step, but I will show you the different tasks. It's super simple. Here I would use an NPM install Artifactory npm install task, which I will actually download, my dependencies, and then I will run the pack and publish. Okay, for so I'm creating a new an npm package, sorry, and I will create it, pack it, and publish it to Artifactory. And in the same way, I have to collect the build info, and at the end, I will publish my build info. So if I just take this as an example, just to show you, this is the latest one. I will jump, we've got exactly the same steps. I will jump to the UI, to the build info section, and exactly in the same way, you will have this notion of what I've created, okay, and the list of my dependencies. And again, I also have a pipeline, release pipeline for my npm package. You will be able to do it in the same way. So the idea is also to perform this, to manage your binaries from your binaries lifecycle in the same way, okay, by relying on different repositories. And this is what you can get from Artifactory. This is actually what I wanted to show you, how to implement pipeline relying on the TFS Azure DevOps plugin. So the last thing that I would like to show, because I told you about, talked about the AQL to perform some kind of searches. So just want to show exactly what you can get. So let's take this, this jQuery npm package. Oh, by the way, so I'm going to show you. Well, actually, you know what? I will show you that in the same way you have an npm info tab, which is displaying the metadata from the npm package. So from the package, the JSON inside the npm package. Okay. In the same way you have the different, metadata. And I just want to show you, the relationship. So here, you would like to know, for instance, which build info, which project are relying on your on this specific dependency. So here you can have this notion of dependent, okay, through this this UI. So I've got 3 projects using it, 3 build info. You can do it using the API, the AQL to have the same result. If I switch to my so actually, I will show you the an AQL query. Okay, if you're familiar with MongoDB, it's kind of similar. It's a JSON format. And here, I'll be looking for any builds which have, this field, this module .dependency.item.name, which match this dependency name. And I will invoke and I will run an AQL query using actually an endpoint. Okay. And by the way, you can see here, this is the query. I'm hitting on this endpoint, API search AQL, and I'm giving my my AQL query. And at the same time, I wanted to show you that, in Artifactory, we're also managing access API key, which is, it's not my encrypted password, it's really a token which has been generated by Artifactory for me. And here, so I'm using JQ just for a better view with colors. So we have exactly, here, I'm saying list me all the builds by name, which have this jQuery as a dependency. And this is the result. It's exactly the same result that you would get on the UI, on this UI. So that's why it's really important. This is what you can really get from Artifactory in terms of UI automation through the REST API, the CLI, and our plugin. And this actually will, close my demo. If you have any question, actually I see that we've got a few questions on this. So we should be able to cover them very quickly. So do you manage, Chocolatey repository? So yes, I showed you that, in Artifactory, you can manage them as, a Chocolatey repository is actually a NuGet repository. So you will be able to host your Chocolatey package and manage them into Artifactory. About the version of the plugin, is it compatible? Which version of the TFS is it compatible? So it's working on TFS. I know it's working on the latest version, okay, on TFS 2015, 2017, because here it's a 2017 version TFS. and TFS 2018 as well. And actually, this will answer the next question. So yes, the plugin is also available on Azure DevOps. So previously VSTS. And that would be all for the question. Yes, I don't see any others. And then, well, I think that we may have a question, another question. So feel free to ask to, to write it in the chat box. I think that we may be, reaching the limit of the time. Feel free to ask your question. We'll be able to, to answer you later, if I can.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. If well, actually, I think, Jan, there is one in the chat. So can Artifactory be used to prevent developers pushing non-SAM ver
2.0 compliant
so I think
artifact?
it's servers supposed to be, right? Yeah.
Yes. So out of the box, okay, we don't do this. And that's why I thought, but you can implement this use case using, by implementing your own user plugin. Using a Groovy script, you will be able, before storing it into Artifactory, you can check its server. And then you should be able to block to prevent pushing it. That should be doable, yes.
Okay, I think that helped. He's saying cool. Great. If anybody else has a question, as we are running a bit out of time, you can always reply to the webinar at jfrog.com address where you received your reminders for this webinar, or you can contact us online. Over our website, we have a contact form that you can fill out. We are always happy to help. So thank you very much, Jan, for the presentation. Thank you, everyone who participated, for your time and interest. We will send you an email with the recording so that you can watch again or share it with your colleagues. And we wish you a great remaining day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.